Good morning, everyone. David McCoy here, Commonwealth Commercial / Ochimo Properties. And I am continuing my series on frequently asked questions for commercial real estate. And today I thought we'd talk about build-out. It's probably obvious, but build-out is meaning that if you find a spot and it needs some modifications or changes, most of the time you can have that space changed or modified. You can change the build out. And that's one thing that's very important when you are working on your lease, is you need to talk about that with your landlord. I find that lots of times people, when they're looking for space, they seem to believe that they were going to find a spot that is already built out exactly the way they want it. Frequently, people will tell me when I say, "Well, what are we looking for?" and they give me a list of the number of offices, the number of conference rooms, kitchen. I mean, it can be all kinds of things. And while those are sort of, common things, the truth of the matter is that just about everybody's needs are so unique that it's very unlikely that you're going to find exactly what you want already built out. So with that in mind, sometimes what's really a better idea is to look for something in the location that you want that fits your other criteria, and maybe you do want it close to what you want in terms of its configuration, but then realize that just about any landlord, just about any of them, will allow you to modify that space so that it suits your needs. Now, I'm going to walk that back a little bit, because there are some things that the landlord would be thinking about and that you should also be thinking about. And that is that how long is the lease going to be? If you're planning on just being there, let's, for the sake of argument, say 1 year, and you want to rip out everything in there and completely reconfigure it to suit you, even if you were paying all the cost, the landlord probably would not want to go along with that, because that would be a real problem for him for the next tenant. But if you were going to be there for, let's say, 10 years, then he would probably be fine with that. So you have to think about how long you're going to be there, and how extensive the renovations are going to be. And then those things need to make sense for both sides. So typically, if you're going to be there, if you're going to have an extensive build out, if you're going to have an extensive renovation of your space, it probably won't make much sense financially for the landlord or the tenant unless you're going to be there at least 5 years. So that's just something to think about. If your situation is you just can't do 5 years, then you may need to just make do with a configuration that is maybe not optimal, but good enough. But that's something to think about. Again, all of this is negotiable, and different landlords do this differently, different agents do this differently. But some landlords will be quoting a rental rate that is just a flat rate. Take the space and it is delivered as is. If you want any renovations done, they may be willing to let you do that, but it would be entirely your cost, and you would be responsible for the contractors. Other times, other leases the landlords actually may build in some money into their rental rate, and they plan on doing some renovations for a new tenant. It may be something just like some repainting and carpet. It may be more extensive than that. Normally, unless it's just brand new space, normally they're not going to build in a really extensive build out in that rate. But it's important to ask, because they may have some money that they're willing to do to get a new tenant. They may be happy to put in some new carpet and repaint it and maybe do some minor work. But they will also, oftentimes, they'll allow a complete renovation of the space if you're going to be there long enough. They may allow you to completely take the space down, remove all the walls, and just put it all the way, completely demo the inside, and then rebuild it to suit you. If you are to do that, then there's a few things you have to think about. One is the amount of time. More than likely, if you're doing that kind of a renovation, it's going to take, and that is if you have contractors available and everything else. You have to get permits and things, and I would say you would be lucky to get that done in 60 days or 90 days. So you have to think about your timeline as well. Then you also have to think about the cost of that. Who's going to pay for it? Now, more than likely, the landlord is not going to pay for a major renovation out of his pocket. But it is possible that he would pay for it up front and then amortize those costs over your lease term, where you would pay it, but it would be in equal installments over your rent. If your landlord does that, he probably is going to charge you interest on that amount, which makes sense. I mean, he borrowed money for you for your purpose, and he in essence is lending that money to you. So they normally will do that. The nice thing, if your landlord will do that, is that becomes part of your rent. Now, that can be a benefit to you in other ways as well. And I'm not an accountant, so I can't give accounting advice, but you can ask your accountant, and I think your accountant would tell you that if all of this is part of your monthly rental expense, then you can deduct that expense 100%. But if you do the renovations out of your pocket and you pay for it yourself, then those renovations are probably going to be classified as a capital expense. And instead of them being fully expensed, they would be amortized, or depreciated. And so that changes the way that your accounting works. So it can be really beneficial if your landlord will do it for you to ask him to do it, and then you just pay it over the term of your lease. Really there's so many factors there in trying to figure all this out. But I think the takeaway I want you to do is don't get hung up when you're looking at space if it's not exactly what you want. If it can probably be reconfigured, but there are a number of factors. The lease term is important. Your landlord, you have to talk to them. But if you find the right spot in the right location, and the budget looks right and everything else about it looks right, but it just needs to be reconfigured, you might want to talk to that person and see if it's not possible to have that done. That's it for today. If anybody has any questions, I feel like I cut that kind of short. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can shoot me a note, or you can leave a comment down below. Also, if you have topics you'd like me to cover in future videos, I'd love to know that. We're just getting started here, and I've been fortunate enough to have several views already and getting some feedback from that. I want to thank you for that. Some of those things, they reminded me, which I've not even thought about, and thank you for telling me. If you like this video, please hit like below. If you feel like someone would benefit from it, please share. And if you like this channel, please subscribe. And I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a terrific day, and I hope to see you next time. Everybody have a great day. Bye.